guilt. It is one of the biggest things I see holding my clients back from living the way that they want to live, being who they truly want to be, because we feel guilty not only when we've made mistakes, right? But also when we are scared of how our choices or our decisions or our change or our growth will impact somebody else. And then we allow that guilt to dictate what we do or don't feel we are allowed to do. Sound familiar? If so, you are in the right place, my friend. If you're tuning in, a big old hi from me to you and welcome, welcome. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button below and the bell to be notified every time I release a new video all about emotional well-being, mental health, and cultivating a true sense of self-trust and self-confidence from within. Okay, so this topic is a big one because as I support my clients, I see so often guilt coming up as being the thing that keeps them stuck or holds them back even as they are growing, healing, getting clearer and clearer on who they are, what works for them and what doesn't. And hey, I totally get it. Sometimes we make mistakes. We are all human here. We are all imperfect, right? Sometimes our guilt is warranted. But a lot of times what I see is that we have guilt that either we're making up because we are assuming how somebody else is going to respond or what they are going to feel based on our actions or behaviors. Or other times we experience guilt when we're taking responsibility for somebody else's emotions or responses in a way that actually is unfair to you and unhelpful to them, because part of empowering all of us to take care of our mental and emotional well-being means that we each get to step up and own our emotions and have a level of self-responsibility. Little side note here, it happens to be raining really hard. So if you hear some pitter-patter in the background, that's all that is. And I'm going to keep rolling with it in an act of, living within integrity and living from the space of imperfection. So back to the juice. Guilt is basically this feeling that we have done or are doing something bad or wrong. And this is different than shame. Shame is really when we believe that we are bad or wrong. And I'm going to save the topic of shame for an entirely different video. Right? So guilt is an emotional experience. And again, let's really normalize it because, experiencing guilt isn't actually a bad thing. What it does is it tells you that you have a conscience, that you are considerate and thoughtful around other people's experiences and emotions and how your behavior and interaction in this world may impact those around you. We want that, right? Like there is a healthy level of guilt to experience. Where I see this turn sticky is when we take guilt and we sit in it and we fester in it and we live in it, right? Whether it is a valid experience of guilt that comes after you've made a mistake or you've done something that was out of your integrity, or it is made up guilt or guilt that is actually not yours to carry based on someone else's experience or response. And what I see is that a lot of times we can sit and we can fester in this experience of guilt almost as like a self-protective mechanism. We think that if we beat ourselves up long enough or if we are hard or harsh to ourselves enough, that way we will protect ourselves from maybe ever making that same mistake again or ever having to experience this emotional experience with somebody else that we love ever again. But the truth is that when we let guilt sit and fester and really be in the driver's seat of how you live your life, what happens is you get further and further away from the truth of who you are, and you start to make decisions based off of trying to protect yourself from this emotional experience, or gosh forbid, I can't believe I just said gosh forbid, God forbid, disappointing somebody else. right? And what happens is when we live from this fear of ever potentially making a mistake or disappointing somebody else, right? We don't give ourselves permission to be full, to be human, to learn. Because the experiences that we have where we are imperfect, or maybe we don't align with somebody else, allow us to learn both about ourselves and the people around us. And then we get to use that information in a really empowering way to decide how we want to move forward. Other times we want to hide from the guilt, right? We don't want to feel it. We don't want to experience. We don't want to acknowledge when we've made a mistake or take that responsibility for our part in what's going on. And that's not super helpful either, right? So ways that you can start to release guilt is first and foremost, per usual, to recognize that it's coming up and just acknowledge it, right? Just cultivating more awareness that guilt is here. She is in the room. She is contributing to how you're feeling and the choices that you're making and the relationships that you hold in your life, be it with yourself or with others. Then tune into, how is this guilt serving you? Or is it serving you? And really give yourself time and space and permission to get curious with what you're experiencing. So for example, I have a client who really needed some healthy boundaries with one of her parents. And this was so hard for her because there was some unhealthy dynamics in that relationship. And so every time she would try to set a boundary, she would be flooded with guilt because her parent wouldn't understand why she needed to set that boundary and would constantly just be asking for more, asking for more, asking for more. And so it caused my client to question, like, am I bad? Am I doing this wrong? Have I made a mistake in how I communicated my needs, right? And so for her in that moment, it was so important to recognize that part of the guilt that was coming through was her parents' weight, right? Of them being able to emotionally hold themselves, and also the discomfort that comes up with our needs maybe not aligning with somebody else's. But then being able to self-validate and recognize, no, I have not done anything wrong here. And I'm being really kind and compassionate and living within my integrity in the way that I'm communicating my needs. So that's a really clear example of what this might look like in practice, of being able to process and check through our inner experiences to learn about what's coming up. So this topic tends to be a pretty big and significant one. So I want to hear from you. What are the situations in your life or the relationships in your life that you tend to feel guilty most often? Drop it in the comments below. And if this is resonating with you, hit that like button, okay? Okay. And then this is the piece that I really want you to keep with you. Write it down if that feels helpful. Use this as a set point to check in when the guilt is coming up, right? And the question that I have for you to explore is, what would my future self, the version of me that I can see that maybe lives powerfully aligned with what matters to her, or is able to communicate her needs really clearly, or is able to experience the whole range of emotions, including guilt, in a way that is healthy, be most proud of me for doing in this moment? So what would the future version of me who's living in her full-bodied truth feel the most proud of me for doing to address my guilt in this moment? So maybe that looks like giving an apology and taking responsibility and then giving myself permission to move forward. Maybe that looks like communicating my needs or reasserting my needs if I need to, if I'm being guilt tripped by somebody else in my life in a way that I know is not about me. Maybe that looks like identifying the guilt, being able to see it as separate from myself, and then practice detaching from it, right? So there's so many different ways that we can process through the guilt. And I want you to take that moment to take a step back and really think about what might future you be most proud of you for doing as you navigate this human experience of guilt in a way that doesn't hold you back from living your truth and engaging with yourself in the world in a way that actually serves you. So if you're struggling to learn how to actually release the guilt in your life, and maybe you're noticing that this experience of guilt is holding you back, it's starting to make you doubt yourself, it's contributing to feelings of anxiety or stuckness in behaviors or habits or relationships that you know aren't actually serving for you, let's connect further. I would love to help you and support you. You can book a free connection call via the link that I will plug below this video. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out this video on responding versus reacting to help you learn how to feel more empowered as maybe you're releasing some of this guilt with yourself or with the people around you. All right, talk soon.